Hello and welcome to the Neurodivergent Fitness Podcast. Woo! I am Meaghan.
And I am Ryan.
And we are going to be talking about neurospiciness in athletes and performers today. Before we get started, I'm going to introduce ourselves since we haven't been around for a little bit. I am Meaghan. I am a personal trainer. I'm a dancer, and I currently am in Detroit, Michigan. And we're going to do a fun fact today. My fun fact is that I like plants, and I'm trying to do a garden, and the garden is not working. And next year it's going to work. My goal is next year is going to work. But
it's a good goal. It's a good goal.
Yeah, it's a good goal. Okay.
My name is Ryan. I am the founder of the Human Movement Method. I am a trainer and biomechanical specialist. And my fun fact of the day is that Taco Bell doesn't sell tacos. It sells Pepsi products.
Oh yeah, we have talked about this before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You want to explain or you want to leave it?
What's that?
You want to? Yeah, I was like, do you want to explain?
Well, first, it's a perfect transition to what we're going to be talking about today, and that's neurodiversity. But yeah, basically, Taco Bell, KFC, and Pizza Hut are restaurant chains that exist not to sell food, but to sell Pepsi products, because otherwise no one would buy Pepsi.
I don't really drink Pepsi anymore. My mom used to drink Pepsi so much.
It's funny. It's like Coke is basically unavailable when I'm in the Czech Republic. So it's either you either get something called Coca-Cola or you get Pepsi. That's what you get.
What's the first one that you said?
Coca-Cola is like, it is a soda that the Czechs love. And I would say it probably tastes more like Dr. Pepper than it does like Coke or Pepsi. And that's not even an accurate statement, but it's very caffeinated. It's kind of got like prune and plum flavors in it, and like a little bit of anise flavor to it. It's more complex. And some people like it and some people don't, but the Czechs love it, and it's everywhere.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, here's another fun fact. Ryan just discovered Liquid Death, which tastes like Dr. Pepper.
A day ago. It tastes like Dr. Pepper, so it's kind of on my brain right now.
Yeah. Also, you can get the Liquid Deaths in the packets with electrolytes. That's why I asked.
Seriously?
Yeah, I know. I was like, yeah.
All I know is that I fell on them I was studying them as a marketing study. And
the marketing's interesting because it looks like
the marketing is
beer.
Mind-blowing. They are really smart.
Yeah.
And I had no idea that it even came. I didn't know it was just water. I didn't know it came in flavors. I did not know anything about it. And so I fell on it as like a marketing study because it basically was a $0 to $1 billion company in like overnight. And now I'm like,
that's wild.
Then I went out and tried it and I was like, my God. And so now I bought my first pack of it today.
That's so funny. The reason I figured that out about the powder is because it's been so hot in the studio and the AC barely works.
Uh-huh.
And it's been like 90 degrees plus.
Well, you got those studio windows that just bake you out. Yeah.
I don't even open the blinds.
Right.
Because like it's so hot, and I have 2 fans in there. I'm gonna get another fan, and they're working on the AC allegedly. Anyhow.
Allegedly.
Yeah. Anywho, okay. That was your good little dose of ADHD before we start our episode about
what we're
ADHD.
talking about today is why people can't stay on topic.
And why it's okay. Why it's okay that you don't have to stay on topic.
Stay with us, folks. Okay. It's like sailing. It's a waving line in a general direction.
Oh, that's not the reference I thought you were going to make. Okay. Anywho, back to what is neurodivergence? What is neurospiciness, all of that stuff. So, divergence, yep, there we go, that's the word. Yesterday, I was trying to say that word and could not for the life of me. To someone else who was also neurodivergent, mind you. But, anywho. Okay, so I'm going to go through a couple different types of neurodivergency, and then Ryan has an interesting way of explaining what it is. But to give you kind of like an idea. So you have ADHD, attention deficit hyperactive disorder, which is what you will get primarily in this podcast.
Yeah, that's what you're witnessing that.
You're witnessing that now. But it comes in like many different forms. Yeah, but it comes in many different forms. Like I know some people who have ADHD who are way more calm than I. But then I also know some people who are way more, but mine usually shows up in conversation where it's like, da 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 da, I'm thinking about something else, da 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 da, boo, 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 and I will start 500 conversations in one conversation, especially with somebody else who has ADHD. So that's one version. Another version is autism. I have friends who have, usually they're paired together too, or paired or like layered. Not paired, like you have multiple different types. So autism, dyslexia, I actually don't know how to say this word.
Dyspraxia.
Dyspraxia, thank you. OCD, I've had friends who have OCD that comes in the version of like not physical. Like I think we think about like cleanliness and stuff when it comes to OCD and particulars, but it also can be more of a mental thing. And how people deal with relationships and how it can, like anxiety is usually paired with that. And then Tourette syndrome, which also can be in many different forms.
Anxiety comes with all of those. Anxiety is like a side effect of every single one.
Yeah. It is. And yeah, go ahead.
Put a person in the right situation, you're gonna get anxiety. And when we're going to say atypical, neurologically atypical, you're in a situation that's going to make you anxious. It's called society. It has certain norms and structures that exist for your typical neuro pathways. So neuroatypicals or neurodivergence means that you don't, like the world doesn't actually make sense to you if you're neurally diverse, because it's not built the way you think. And society and the world is essentially a series of systems. So a lot of the time...
Not designed.
Yeah, and so if it doesn't follow your natural mental pathway, you don't navigate it as intuitively as other people do. And it can cause you anxiety.
It can cause you anxiety. And it also, at least for me, I feel like I have been put in situations that are like, you should be able to do this. And the reality is that it's not that I should be able to do this. It's actually that like my brain is not designed to function in the way that you want it to. So that came up a lot with like 9-to-5 office jobs. Like we've talked about this before, but you come sit down, like my brain does not function in a way where it's like you need to work from X hour to X hour and do this thing after this thing after this thing. That's just not how I was programmed.
No, and there's a lot of research that's been done. I have a couple of the things. And since I have a couple of the things, yeah, I operate very well being self-employed. And I can get my stuff done, and I'm good at self-organizing. But it's from practice. I don't. Yeah. When I was 20 years old, 18 years old, 16 years old.
Which is not how old I am, by the way, people. Just so you know.
No, but we're talking like this was not, these general concepts were not thrown around very openly, and so
yeah, it's true.
The idea was, the common thing that I got in school was really smart person needs to apply himself better, aka isn't focused. And so, and it turns out that actually super focused, not focused on what you're talking about. And so it's a different skill set, and I think the thing that you were alluding to earlier that I mentioned before we started this was that the reality is that neurodiversity is a basket of stuff. Chances are, if you're in the basket, you're in the basket. And so whatever you've been diagnosed with or whatever you associate with are typically things that it's where you are in the basket. But it's very possible that you'll have overlap or things that go together. And oftentimes what will happen is a person, just because they get diagnosed with one thing, they don't realize that they're experiencing a series of other things as well. And that will happen throughout life. And really just the more you know about it, if you are a neurally diverse person, I think one of the most important things for me at my age was that it vastly increased my sense of self-compassion. And the more I learned that, this isn't me, this is a thing. Yeah. And this is how it presents itself. And once I kind of realized that and it was depersonalized, I could work with it a lot better.
Yep. And that your brain is different, but also there are other people who function similar. I think is very, very helpful, at least for me also, knowing that like, okay, so this system isn't set up for me, but there is a different system that can work with how my brain functions. Also just like recognizing that like, I think this happened to me with my partner where I'm like explaining how my brain works and she's like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Your brain does what?
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait, not everybody? Yeah. So that whole going through that process is super helpful too.
Yeah, being able to verbalize, this is what I experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So, but to segue to like the next part, like back to performers and athletes, like it does, while we might not be great in environments such as like an office, we actually do super well in environments that require like the use of brain, body, like I want to say multitasking with like quotations. And things that involve like repetitive patterns and also like things that involve I don't want to say high speed, I want to say fast paced like switching of topics. So performers and athletes, and I know you've mentioned before like there's research that shows that like people who have neurodivergencies will show up in entrepreneurs, in athletes, in performers, in all this stuff. The interesting part though, when I was doing research for this, is that there were a lot of athletes that have talked about it, but there were not a lot of dancers or entertainers that have talked about it that I was able to find that easy. So it was interesting.
Einstein was dyslexic.
No.
For example, I'm dyslexic. Dyslexia is super common. So one of the side effects of dyslexia, dyslexia isn't actually a learning disability. It's neurologically what it is it's one part of your brain that works too well and doesn't shut off. And it's the three-dimensional reasoning capacity of your brain. So you're able to conceptualize space three-dimensionally really, really well if you have dyslexia. It's actually your benefit that comes with dyslexia. The problem is, what your brain does is it grabs onto two-dimensional objects like letters and it starts trying to orient them in space. And it can't. Because they're not three-dimensional. But your brain is modeling them like they are. And so you wind up flipping letters around. That's not really how it works, and that's not really what experiencing it is like. There are times when I can look at whole written pages and it's just gibberish to me. I can't read it. And you've seen me do this. I know you've seen me do this. I'll look at something and you'll see me put it at my hip and I'll do something else for like 30 seconds and then look at it again. Because in that moment, however it's crossing, I can't do it. So I have to reset. I call it resetting the system. But
I wonder how many architects or people who have to envision spaces are dyslexic. I wonder what the percentage is there, because that seems like a very helpful tool to have.
You will also find that dyslexics excel at things like math. They really, really do well in fields like physics and like geometry, but they falter at basic things like algebra and then later on like trigonometry.
Yeah, maybe I'm dyslexic. That was good. But I mean, I do have some signs of it. But
well, again, there's overlap.
Yeah.
You're gonna have that stuff. It just is. That's just how it is.
I think about like when I was taking math in college, calculus was great and fun. And then when I had to explain some algebra stuff, I was like, I don't know how I got here. I just got here. And I think like skipping steps is that part of it?
That can be. Like, I'll give you an example. Like, for me, when I was in school, right? Like, back when I was in school, we had to write down everything and show our work.
Yeah.
And so the idea was that you had to go through it the way, find the problem the way that it was organized. Well, I would show my work and I would get marked down because the way I did the work was wrong. But I couldn't follow it the other way. So, like, one of the things that I do, which I guess now is a really common thing that they teach, is I do what you call blocking numbers, which is just a mental way of using an abacus. So you take a number like 334, and that's 300, that's 30, and that's 4. I take the number and I break it into its individual parts, and then I match all the parts, and then I put them all back together. That's how I add and subtract and do. That's how I do that.
Yeah.
Which is how you use an abacus. It's the same concept.
Okay.
But that's not we were taught to carry numbers. Did you ever learn carrying numbers? Mm-hmm. Where you put them over top of each other and you go down the, Mm-hmm. I mean, it's never made sense to me. I don't do it that way.
Oh, so I do it that way, but I also do kind of like blocking. But I'll take I group it how makes sense for me. So if it's like 8 plus 12, I take like the 2 from the 12 and put it with the 8.
8,
so
yeah,
it's like
and then you
10
make a 10. Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's blocking. Yeah. That's how you block numbers. Yeah. And honestly, when we do plate math is blocking.
Oh, yeah.
Just the value you're using as a plate.
Yeah.
It's not actually numbers. You're just the plate is the block, and you just get so used to working up to 500 pounds mentally that you can just do it in any block variation necessary. I'm
so bad at plate math.
Are you? Okay.
So to anybody, we're talking about a barbell.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about.
Yep.
At first, when you said that, I thought we were talking about food, and we're talking about a barbell.
No, we're talking about barbell math. Yeah.
Barbell,
math.
The plates, Yep.
So
I've literally had people lift their heaviest because I fucked up how much.
Because you messed up the calculation.
I was like, yeah, and then after that, I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna pretend like I fucked it up, and then they're gonna lift more because I have somebody who if they think it's less, they can actually lift more. I'm
it's funny. Well, we're gonna go way off on a tangent. One of the first trainers I ever worked with, I asked him. I said, "What was the strongest person you ever trained?" And he said, "Actually, it was a blind guy."
Because they didn't. What?
They had no concept of it. It was always the same weight to them.
That's wild.
Right? They have no mental construct.
They just have to feel it. Yeah, they have to. Yeah.
Feel it. So there's just a sense of intensity, and they just match the sense of intensity, and that's it.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That's wild. Okay. So, we're going to get back on topic.
Yeah, let's get back on topic.
But kind of not really, because I did do research on one dancer who is a performer and dancer who is blind and has autism. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, that is
So I was doing research on physical modalities and dietary stuff for neurodiversities at one point.
Yeah.
And
we already going to have an episode about.
Right, which we already have an episode about. Actually, it came from my partner. She sent it to me because the manual was originally in Russian. And so we had to translate it from Russian.
That's wild. Okay.
Basically, it turns out that there's different modalities that different neurodiversities gravitate toward. And, for example, one of the ones that's super interesting is people with autism like to spin. It's regulating for them. They love to spin. It's just a thing that they do.
I could totally see that. Yeah.
People with autism love to spin. They like heavy pressure. So there's different. That's why weighted blankets can be helpful. Mm. It's also why you see they do very well at powerlifting. They also are excellent at jujitsu. That sense of heavy pressure, they really, that's very at home for them.
I'm laughing because my friend who has autism, she's a badass, and she one time came to my studio and I was like, I bet you I can coach you to lift every single plate in a deadlift in the studio. And she's like, yeah, let's go.
Yeah, let's
and
do it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, she was like, we were supposed to be dancing and rehearsing, and I was like, my other friend was like, and me and her were like, let's go! She did it. It was awesome. And she's never deadlift before that. I was like, this is wild. But yeah, she also did Muay Thai.
Yep. Yep. But that's, again, very rotational. And so what you'll find is that many neurodiversities all regulate back to basic things. Heavy pressure, heavy loading, contralateral movement, rotational movement, spinning. These are all, balance, standing on one foot, doing things that are specifically balance oriented. These all have different regulatory effects for neurodivergence. So for example, if you were programming for a neurodivergent person, it would be best to pick 2 or 3 of those modalities per workout, and they will excel significantly faster as a result of that.
Yeah. Instead of switching it up all the time?
Yeah, well, what you do
saying?
is you essentially keep it in a core set of movements. So there is, I can't remember the guy's name, there's a researcher that does this, but there is like a form of physical calisthenics for treating ADHD. And it's all about getting the 2 sides of the brain to regulate and essentially reach a state of coherence. Yeah, same thing with PTSD. I've done a lot of what I would call vague research on this. I can't quote the studies, but they're out there.
Yeah.
All you have to do, the best book you can read, and everybody knows it, everybody's heard of it, it's called The Body Keeps the Score. They talk about how people with severe PTSD show signs of, like, for example, dyspraxia. They lose coordination, they have a hard time with left and right, physical balance and coordination suffer, that sort of thing.
There's another book that I forgot the name of it that is very similar to The Body Keeps Score. I'll look it up and find it, but yeah.
Does it involve
100%.
a tiger or a lion in the name? There's another one out there that's really, really common, and it's like Taming the Tiger or something like that. And
It might. Taming sounds familiar.
yeah, there's, you know what I'm talking about? Like, there's another book out there that's like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the one, from what I understand about this book, I haven't read it, but the book is more, it plays, hold on, let me have it phrased. So it involves like society and cultural nuances in relationship to that. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't remember which, I was reading some book, I can't remember which, but they were talking about how, like, in different cultures, different things are neurodiverse. And they were talking about there's like a Polynesian island clan that teaches all the children to navigate based on the stars, and they're really good at looking at water and seeing the refraction through the water and how the waves come together to make sure that they don't hit coral. And because sailing is a big part of their culture. And so all these things they're like what they teach their children, this is all the stuff. And they were like, in that environment, ADHD is a superpower. Like they would be super, super talented people. And you put that same person in a contextual experience of working a 9-to-5 job, and it's just a completely different environment. So it's important to understand that what we call neurodiversities are not really based on, they are things that exist and have existed. I call them genetic insurance policies. We never know what the world is going to do. And so genetics does not, and evolution does not, it does not care about the individual. Evolution does not care about the individual. It is irrelevant. The individual is irrelevant. What is relevant is the survival of the species. And so even though you may not be on top today for the environment as it is today, you exist as an insurance policy for something that happened in the past and will likely happen in the future, and those traits need to continue.
Yeah, so essentially what you're saying is that right now, in this point of time, like, there is a trend of going into an office and 9-to-5ing it, and that's not always the case.
Right,
as we've seen with the pandemic.
Yeah.
History in general.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I have had the pleasure of being around people that are I don't know if you're aware of this, there's types of intelligence. I've been around people that I would consider to be very neurally diverse and exceedingly high natural intelligence. Natural intelligence is the understanding of plants, animals, environments, and nature. These people intuit nature.
I don't have that.
And I mean, they're the type of people that they can feel when the wind changes direction on their skin. That is the way that they are. They have a constant natural sense of north. They understand the behavior of animals in a way that most people cannot. And so, as I always say, humans have outsourced their inabilities to other animals. Often, this is why we have dogs around. Dogs are a prosthetic for our sensory inabilities. If a dog pays attention to something, you don't need to know what's out there. You just need to pay attention to the dog. And when it comes to people, when we work in groups to survive, you don't need everyone to be good at the same skill. You need a diversity of skills in the group. You don't need to know everything. You just need to know who knows that thing. And when it comes their time, you get behind them and you go. And, you know, the ADHD kid might be the best tracker in the group. And it doesn't really matter. You just go with it.
And I think about, as we're like talking about like strengths or how it can be used as a strength, like I think about someone who like usually like for ADHD, or at least for me, like I can think really quickly. And I can make I can like make a decision and like move quickly, like mentally and physically, but like, and do the thing. But like when it comes to like planning ahead and like doing a lot of research and doing all of that stuff, maybe not my strong suit. So like when it comes to like, I think about it when it comes to like events and stuff, like day of, I'm like the person you want right now next to you. Cause like you need this to happen. You can't think about what to do. Okay, I got it this way. Okay, I know where to go, blah, blah, blah. But like in terms of like planning the event ahead of time, I'm like, probably not your person. So it like goes to your point of like, you need to have both. You need to have the planner and you need to have the person who can make quick decisions on the fly.
Well, and I think when you know yourself, you know, so there's a principle that towards learning. And learning is not the same as success. Okay, I just want to make this really clear. Like, you can learn.
Who says that?
There's plenty of people that are super successful that don't need to learn anything for the rest of their life, and there's plenty of people that learn their whole lives and don't necessarily become what society considers successful. So these things are not necessarily linked. So this is in regards to learning, not in regards to success.
Thank you for tuning in to part 1 of this episode. Part 2 will be featured next week.